Hello, welcome to the Basketball Soapbox. This is episode 43, and I'm your host, Daniel Daly. And we're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference semifinals that are happening this weekend, starting on Sunday, with the Knicks and Heat here. Looking at this series here, two surprising teams that have made it under seeds that have made it over higher seeds. The Bucks are no longer just extinguished by the Miami Heat. And then we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were kicked out by the New York Knicks. Looking back at those two series were a very surprising series to me, especially because I thought Cleveland had the advantage in terms of Donovan Mitchell's explosiveness and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And in that series against the Knicks, Jalen Brunson outplayed Donovan Mitchell as we look at that series back. And then Mitchell Robinson on the front line, just abusing the front line of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, which was very surprising to me. I thought they would have a skills and size advantage. I thought they would be a little bit better protecting the rim. But this is a young team next to Donovan Mitchell right now. And just to see the Knicks just outplay them, out-tough them, Josh Hart with great minutes, Julius Randle being tough against those guys. But I think Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, Mitchell Robinson were the key factors for the Knicks in that series. And to see them do that, and see how well coached they are and disciplined they are against the Cleveland team that just didn't seem to have any answers, no shooting, no answers on the front line, and just inefficient shooting from Donovan Mitchell. They really just imploded. And that was really put on full display by the Knicks, and kudos to the Knicks for playing great defense and executing when they did. As well as we're looking at the Miami Heat, probably the biggest surprise of the Eastern Conference in the first round matchups and across the NBA. When you look at how they extinguished the Milwaukee Bucks, who were a title favorite. Yes, Giannis didn't miss probably 3.5 games. He missed a big portion of game one. He missed 2, 3, came back in 4, came back in 5. And you just saw how the Miami Heat were just able, even shorthanded as with Tyler Hero, who broke his hand also in game one. And you're just looking at all the contributions that they had from guys that were out of nowhere. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Kevin Love. A lot of these guys, we didn't even know their names. There's a couple other guys. Hayward, I believe his name is. Like, they have a couple other guys that you didn't even think that came in and played big time and really put away some leads there. I believe Milwaukee was up 14 in game 4, right? Like in game 4 in the fourth quarter. And then in game 5, they were up 16. And both times they blew the lead, and Jimmy Butler was fantastic. He was amazing. Put the team on his back, really did everything that they needed for them to even have a chance and then win the series. For him to do that was crazy. But kudos to these two teams who are kind of a throwback 90s team, playoff teams that we've seen and grew up and loved and watched as we were growing up, and seeing their toughness and how being physical, being tough, being disciplined can overcome a lot of things in the NBA, especially when other teams are not ready, even if other teams have more talent. And that was the case in those two series, right? Like Miami Heat down Tyler Hero. You think they just signed him. You think that would be a big factor, and Miami just stepped up. All their guys stepped up, starting with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. All those guys played great, giving Milwaukee trouble. And then you look at the Knicks. All those guys, like, they just put it to Cleveland Cavaliers, and they just had no answers. But looking ahead to this series with the Knicks and Heat, sitting here and thinking about how the history of this rivalry, right? It all started in 1994 when Pat Riley sent a fax. No, it was 1995. Yeah, 1995. He sent a fax to the New York Knicks saying, "Yeah, I'm quitting. I'm leaving." And went to the Miami Heat like a thief in the night. And the New York Knicks have never forgave him for that. And basically starting that rivalry started with Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, and then you see the Heat get Oakley, and they get Ewing, and they get LJ, Larry Johnson, who has beef with Alonzo Mourning. All those battles, all those tough battles with PJ Brown, Jamal Mashburn, Allen Houston. You have all these battles that are happening. And then in 1999, when you think about how Allen Houston's last-second shot eliminated them, and the New York Knicks were 8th seed, and the Heat were a 1st seed, and just all that. And all these battles, especially from back in the day, were just physical. We had a little rekindling of it with LeBron and Carmelo. with Miami and New York there. But ultimately, we're getting that again, and we're getting the personalities of those 90s Knicks, those 90s Heat, Pat Riley, Jeff Van Gundy, like all these guys that were in the mix of that battle. We're going to get that in this series. Tibbs was on the defensive staff for the New York Knicks as well at that time, too. And you just look at the history here. Everyone knows each other. It's going to be so crazy. And especially when you see Jimmy Butler going up against this team. You see Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle. Like, these are no-nonsense guys. Like, this series can be anything that we want it to be, right? Like, this is going to be a bloodbath. Like, it could be a game that finishes in 80-85 type of game that throws back to the 90s and all the type of scoring that people hate today. This is the series for you. If you want to have old school basketball, this is going to be the series potentially on paper. The New York Knicks, I think they have the advantage in this series with just depth and Jalen Brunson, various ways to beat you offensively with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle inside. And then Mitchell Robinson playing a big factor. He came up big time in that series. I can see him also coming up big time in this series as well, especially on that front line. It's going to be interesting to see how Bam Adebayo battles him and see how that goes against how those guys go against each other. I think New York has a little bit more rim protection than Miami. It's going to be very interesting to see how Jimmy Butler plays this. Are the Knicks going to double him? Is he going to be able to continue? Because we've seen Jimmy Butler have spurts where he puts on great performances, and then sometimes he might lay a dud and stuff like that, and he kind of plays it by ear, right, as the series is going. If he doesn't have it that night, he doesn't have it that night, and then he plays well in another series. But this series, they really can't afford him to do that because the antennas of the New York Knicks are up. Like, New York Knicks are going to be up. They have R.J. Barrett, Jalen Brunson, all these guys here, Quentin Grimes, Josh Hart, guys that they're going to continuously throw at Jimmy Butler. And it's going to be interesting to see how Miami answers that. And Spo, of course, one of the best coaches, one of the best tacticians in the NBA to make adjustments, figure out stuff, and do stuff unorthodox. Can he figure out a way to continue to use his guys? Because Kyle Lowry hasn't been the best. Tyler Hero is not available. Duncan Robinson has had a good series last series. Can he continue to keep that up? Can you continue to count on these guys that people really don't know about on your roster to compete with the New York Knicks, right? Like, that's the biggest thing that we're trying to figure out here, because we know the Knicks have depth. They play 7-8 guys deep, and they have a chance there. And it's just like, this is going to be a tough series for the Knicks, and they caught the Milwaukee Bucks off guard, but I think there's going to be a little bit more of a challenge there going up against New York, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I think it's going to be a big series for Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. I think they're going to have a little bit more of an advantage in this series than they did the last series, and it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. Miami, I just think they're too depleted, and yes, Jimmy Butler is going to have great performances. There's going to be a lot of emotion in this, a lot of history here, of course, between him and Tibbs when he was in Chicago and then Minnesota. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out between these two teams here, and it's just going to be a bloodbath. Yeah, I think there could be a chance for it to get so physical that people get kicked out. Maybe even a little blood in this series. This series is really a throwback to the days of the 90s Knicks and the 90s Heat, like those 90 playoff battles where it was just fisticuffs. And it's going to be great basketball. It's going to be entertaining. I think people are going to enjoy it, and hopefully it's a good series. It's going to be tough to pick against Jimmy Butler, man. That's my dog. It's going to be tough to pick against Jimmy Butler. Can I do it? I think the odds just might be too much for the Miami Heat in this one, man. It just really might just be too much. I'm going to pick the Knicks in 6. Knicks in 6, and that's going to make the Knicks fans go happy and crazy and run around. And I hate to pick against Jimmy Butler, but I just don't think they have enough in this series. We'll see how it goes. I believe it starts on Sunday at 1 o'clock. I believe it starts on Sunday. So that's going to be an entertaining game, and we'll see how that goes.